and welcome. Tonight, PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar leads other party leaders and supporters in a march to the INEC headquarters in protest over the outcome of Saturday's presidential election. INEC asks the Presidential Election Petition Court to modify the orders granted the Labour Party and PDP candidates to inspect materials used for the presidential election. Supreme Court affirms Dauda Lawal as the authentic candidates of the PDP for the Zamfara State governorship election after upholding the judgments of the Court of Appeal supported division on the matter.
On business news tonight, U.S. nominee for World Bank Group President Ajay Banga hold discussions with African Development Bank Group leadership as it kicks off global tour.
And on sports news tonight, Serie A top goal scorer Nigeria's Victor Osimhen receives award for the best foreign athlete in Italy for 2022. Says he wants to deliver a first league title in more than 30 years to Napoli fans.
And from Abuja, I owe no one any apologies, River State Governor Nyesom Wike declares, says his quest for the emergence of a Southerner as president was in the spirit of power rotation.
And in international news from London, Bangladeshi authorities are investigating the cause of a massive fire in a Rohingya refugee camp, which has left 12,000 people without shelter.
As the nation awaits the commencement of the legal battle over the outcome of the presidential election, the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, today took his protest on the outcome of the poll to the streets. The former vice president led some other party PDP leaders and party supporters in a march to the headquarters of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, in Abuja to register their grievances. They say they embarked on the march to express their rejection of the February 25th presidential and National Assembly election results.
A large crowd of supporters of the People's Democratic Party gather in front of the Legacy House in Abuja, gearing up for a protest to the headquarters of the Independent National Electoral Commission. Of some party leaders, including the PDP presidential candidate, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, the national chairman of the party, as well as some governors, activates the protests. The protesters file out of the premises into the streets. Their destination is the INEC headquarters. Chant songs as they go, alleging fraud in the February 25 elections.
I voted in my unit. I recorded the result, scanned and sent. But what I saw on the website, the result has been completely mutilated. Out of 113 votes from my unit, what I saw have been reduced to 80. So who did that?
INEC did not do well. The process was very opaque. It was not transparent, and everybody is complaining. We are complaining that our votes did not count and that we cannot vote that way through the next election.
They call for the cancellation of the election's results.
We are here to demand the cancellation of that election on the 25th. And that is the only answer for our country, Nigeria. Because as far as we are concerned, INEC, we contested this election against INEC, not against APC.
At the INEC headquarters, security officials barricade the entrance as the protesters approach. The gate of the commission was later closed as protesters took over the entrance. Here, the PDP national chairman submits the protest letter to the national commissioner in charge of voter education, Mr. Festus Okoye.
The commission belongs to the Nigerian people, and whatever grievances there are, we will look into all those grievances. If there are grievances that can be redressed, we will redress those grievances.
For the PDP presidential candidate, this protest will be sustained.
We are protesting, and we have the right to protest under the Constitution. It doesn't stop us from going to court, the fact that we are protesting. In fact, this protest is going to continue either every day or every other day.
Besides this protest, the PDP is also in court to challenge the outcome of the February 25 presidential election.
Meanwhile, INEC is asking the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal to modify the orders earlier granted the candidates of the PDP and the Labour Party, Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi, to inspect materials used for the presidential election. In a motion or notice filed on March the 4th, the electoral body is praying the court to vary the order which restrained it from tampering with materials used for the election. The Commission said it needed to reconfigure the bimodal voter accreditation system for the next round of elections. The Court of Appeal, Abuja, had on February the 3rd granted the request of the presidential candidates of the PDP and the LP to have access to all sensitive materials INEC deployed for the conduct of the election. They maintained that the requested documents would aid their petition against the outcome of the presidential contest that was declared in favor of the candidates of the APC, Bola Tinubu. And staying with legal matters, the Supreme Court has affirmed Mr. Dauda Lawal as the authentic candidate of the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, for Zamfara State governorship election. In a unanimous judgment, the five-man panel of justices dismissed an appeal brought against the nomination by another governorship aspirant, Mr. Ibrahim Gusau. In the lead judgment delivered by Justice Adamu Jauro, the Apex Court upheld the judgment of the Court of Appeal, Sokoto Division, which had on January the 6th this year endorsed the second primary election that produced Mr. Lawal.
As the governorship and state houses of assembly election gets closer, the Apex Court is getting rid of pre-election matters, and one of such is the Zamfara governorship dispute for the People's Democratic Party in the state. The five-man panel of justices affirmed the decision of the Court of Appeal, Sokoto Division, which had endorsed the PDP primary that produced Mr. Dauda Lawal as the party's governorship candidate for Zamfara State. Justice Adamu Jauro, who read the judgment, held that the Federal High Court in Gusau, Zamfara State, which nullified the primary election twice, had no jurisdiction at the time it adjudicated upon the suit instituted by a governorship aspirant in the state, Mr. Ibrahim Gusau. The Apex Court also upheld the submissions of the counsel to Mr. Lawal, Mr. Damian Dodo, that his client was legally and lawfully nominated in line with the provisions of the law. The first PDP governorship primary election, held on May 25, 2022, was challenged at the Federal High Court in Gusau and was nullified. The High Court, in its judgment, ordered for fresh primary election, and the same court quashed it, alleging irregularities. Not satisfied with the High Court decision, Mr. Lawal and two others approached the Appeal Court Sokoto for redress, which upheld the two primaries that produced him as the right candidate.
The finality of the resolution of this issue, I think, is a cause for great joy and satisfaction to the client, whose candidature was affirmed by the Court of Appeal. But the appellants were not satisfied and decided to come to the Supreme Court. So for him, as the candidate of the party in Zamfara State, the governorship candidate of the PDP, it is a matter of great joy and satisfaction that the Supreme Court has put its authority behind his candidature. And he can now face the business of electioneering campaign.
The decision of the Supreme Court finally lays to rest the legal dispute over the governorship ticket of the People's Democratic Party for Zamfara State.
Away from the judiciary, but as it affects politics, political parties are also ramping up campaigns in Ogun State, where Governor Abia State has promised residents of Ogun waterside local government area to unleash its economic potential as an oil-rich area. He says his administration will upgrade the state-owned petrochemical institute and the commencement of the Olokola deep seaport located in that area. He gave the assurance at the re-election campaign tour of the local government area to woo voters.
It was the turn of the Ogun Waterside and Yewa South local government area of the state as the governor, in company of APC officials, elders, candidates for the State House of Assembly and National Assembly elect from the 3 senatorial districts of the state showed up. He was welcomed everywhere by a large crowd of enthusiastic supporters who commended his purposeful leadership style, which they said has qualified him for re-election for a second term in office.
Coming Saturday, I plead with the good people of Ogun State to come out and vote for Governor Abia State for second term, because it has really worked.
The work that the governor has done has vindicated the APC by saying that the man is very active and is equal to the task, and that equally encourages us that he should be voted for the second term.
It was not just a visit to seek their votes. The governor also commissioned some projects executed by his administration, which include a primary health care center and a 6-kilometer link road.
Each time we go out campaigning in every local government, it has now defined our campaign. We just don't go there to make promises to you. We come to each local government, commission a project as evidence of the fulfillment of promises that we made to you in the past. This stands to reason that an administration that has fulfilled its promises to you, more than likely, will make new promises, and those promises will be fulfilled.
The governor, having toured about 18 local government areas of the state for his re-election bid, is slated to visit Ijebu North and Yewa North local governments ahead of the governorship and House of Assembly elections come the 11th of March.
Staying in Ogun State with a campaign trail of the governorship candidate of the African Democratic Congress, the ADC, Mr. Olubiyi Otegbeye, which is in Ijebu Waterside local government area, he gave an assurance of developing community and changing the negative trend being experienced in the local government area. Mr. Otegbeye made this pledge while addressing the gathering at his campaign rally in the headquarters of Ijebu Waterside local government area.
The governorship candidate of the ADC in Ogun State, Mr. Olubiyi Otegbeye, is leaving no stone unturned in his bid to become the next governor of the Gateway State. Mr. Otegbeye and his running mate, Mr. Olatunde Awonuga, take their campaign to Ijebu Waterside local government area of the state, which also shares boundaries with neighboring Ondo State. He promises to bring development to the area.
These people have been denied of development. Electricity is not here at all. And yet we are supposed to have government in place. All the women have been downtrodden. All the men have not been provided for. And all these people, aside from the development they experienced years back, and the people of Ogun Waterside, they have collectively resolved that enough is enough. They have asked me to tell the whole world that all their votes will be cast for ADC, because the present administration should not return and will not return.
His running mate, who hails from Ijebu Waterside local government area, says it's a great opportunity that has come to the area and must reflect with their vote on Saturday.
This is the first time in history that one of their sons will be appointed by a political party, will be given the opportunity for them to be represented as the deputy governor of Ogun State. Therefore, let it be in the note that the watersiders, they are not slaves to anyone. We understand we want a development for the watersiders, and APC is ready to partner with watersiders for growth and development.
The ADC, with its logo which indicates a handshake, promises to bring about goodwill and all-inclusive governance in Ogun State if elected into office.
In part two, after the break, Rivers State Governor Wike defends his support for the emergence of a southern president, says it is in the spirit of power rotation. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television. A reminder of our top stories. PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar leads other party leaders and supporters in the march to the INEC headquarters in protest over the outcome of Saturday's presidential election. INEC asks the presidential candidate election petition court to modify the orders granted the Labour Party and PDP candidates to inspect materials used for the presidential election. Supreme Court affirms Dauda Lawal as the authentic candidate of the PDP for Zamfara State governorship election after upholding the judgment of the Court of Appeal Sokoto Division on the matter. And Bangladesh authorities are investigating the cause of a massive fire in Rohingya refugee camp, which has left 12,000 people without shelter. Over to Abia State now, where the governorship candidates of the Labour Party in the state, Dr. Alex Otti, has debunked claims that his government has plans to slash salaries of workers, sack civil servants, and over 200 traditional rulers if elected. Mr. Otti, who was speaking on the sideline of a meeting with party faithful in Umuahia North, described the accusation as unfounded and baseless. He promised to initiate programs and policies that will boost the economy of the state and add value to the workforce and the traditional institution.
Members and supporters of the Labour Party in Umuahia North local government area of Abia State, in their numbers, are here for a strategic meeting with the party's governorship candidate in the state, Dr. Alex Otti, ahead of the March 11 governorship election. The purpose of this meeting is to appreciate the supporters of the party for voting the presidential candidate, Mr. Peter Obi, in the last election, and then strategize towards winning the governorship polls.
One of the major fulcrum of my administration will be creation of jobs and improvement in the welfare of workers. So how can I be sacking workers if I intend to create jobs?
Some stakeholders describe Dr. Otti as the best man to transform Abia State and call on all Abia residents to come out en masse and vote him.
I said to the people of Abia State is that next Saturday, please, everyone should come out en masse and vote LP, Labour Party. That's where Dr. Alex Otti is. We must make sure that we protect our votes till the last count.
Thereafter, Dr. Otti's campaign train proceeds to another meeting, this time with members of CY Nwankwo Foundation. He's received by the leadership of the group.
Our future is secure if today we do the right thing by installing him as the next governor. We are voting for the future, for tomorrow. When the state is secure, everything will be fine.
Dr. Alex Otti and the Labour Party have been receiving highly placed Abia residents from across political parties who have decided to join forces with him to ensure he brings Labour Party to power come Saturday, March the 11th, 2023.
Let's head to our Abuja studio now, where Gloria Mezoke is standing by to give us more on the news at 10. Hello, Gloria.
Thank you, Anne. The Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike says he owes no one any apology for the outcome of the presidential election, which produced a candidate of the APC, Bola Tinubu, as president-elect. But this is in spite of Governor Wike being a member of the PDP. He explained that his interest is in ensuring that a southerner emerged in the spirit of power rotation. Governor Wike, who was speaking during the commissioning of a 27.12-kilometer Eche-Igbodo road in the Eche local government area of the state, asked the residents to vote for PDP candidates in the governorship and state assembly elections come March the 11th.
It's Governor Nyesom Wike's first public engagement in Rivers State after the presidential and national assembly elections as he arrives at Komoko in a Eche local government area to inaugurate this 27.12-kilometer federal road that was reconstructed by his administration. Completed in 12 months, this road, which links Rivers and Imo states through Ngokpala, is about the 40th project that the governor has delivered in the last 4 months.
We have a total of 22.01 kilometers of drains, 800 millimeter by 900 millimeter in dimensions, with a wall thickness of 150 millimeters. And across the alignment, we have a total of 16 culverts. And then we have 6 discharge points.
Governor Wike, who is an advocate of a southern president, says he's fulfilled with the emergence of the APC presidential candidate, Senator Bola Tinubu, as president-elect, saying he owes no one an apology.
The last election, 25th of February, I remain to be challenged. I owe nobody any apologies at all. I'm one of the apostles and one of those who stood firm that power must rotate. I said so. This is for equity, this is for fairness, and this is for justice. Whether you voted for Labour, I have no problem with you. Whether you voted for APC, I have no problem with you.
Mr. Peter Obi of the Labour Party won this local government area in the presidential election, and Governor Wike hails the people for supporting a southern candidate. He adds that it would have also felt good if Mr. Obi had won the presidential polls.
As far as I'm concerned, anybody from South, that is my position. So I'm not there coming to say, you voted for Labour, you voted for APC. No. That is what we agreed as Integrity Group, that we must make sure the South emerges as the next president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
With the presidential and national assembly elections over, Governor Wike encouraged them to vote the PDP in the March 11 governorship and state assembly elections to reciprocate his administration's gesture in the area.
Well, still ahead on the news at 10, U.S. nominee for the World Bank Group President Ajay Banga holds discussions with African Development Bank Group leadership as he kicks off global tour. Well, that's in business news. Do join us again. You're welcome back. You're still watching the news at 10, coming to you live on Channels Television. Still on elections, civil society organizations have continued their assessment of the recently concluded presidential and National Assembly elections. The Chief Executive Officer of the Policy and Legal Advocacy Center, Mr. Clement Wankwo, says following what he describes as the abysmal performance of the electoral umpire, the president's intention to leave a legacy of free and fair elections has failed. He's also calling for an audit of the elections and that INEC must be held responsible for the bungling of the elections. Mr. Wankwo was speaking to our political correspondent, Terry Ikumi.
It's true that the Electoral Act does not necessarily make it mandatory for you to create a results viewing portal. But it's also true that you had outlined in your regulations and guidelines. And regulations and guidelines at the end of the day, and even your statements of how you intend to pursue the elections, at the end of the day, build up the framework for conduct of elections. And this Electoral Commission did not follow what it has said it would. And that's really what the anger of Nigerians is. Everyone was so happy to see a new electoral act assented to by the president. And the president said everywhere that he went to, he wanted to leave a legacy of good elections. Certainly, this is not good elections, so he leaves no legacy on elections for Nigeria, which is quite a shame.
But what does this now say going into the March 11 governorship and state houses of assembly elections? There are persons who are discouraged, especially first-time voters, who fear that we may have returned to that era of my vote will not count. What does this say going into the election?
No, I think people should be angry enough to go out and vote. People should be so very angry about this that they determine to come out on March 11 to vote, but not just to vote, be there, see that the votes count and are counted. So let young people know that politics is also local. And at that local level, they should make their choice, they should defend their mandate, and they should ensure that their votes count. And let me also say that INEC must be held to account for bungling this very expensive, and you can imagine what it costs the average Nigerian, this election. INEC, we would come to that point where there has to be an audit of what has happened. And INEC must be held responsible for what it failed to do and for what it did. And that's for those who believe that INEC on its own even deepened the crisis of the elections.
For the full interview, watch Political Paradigm on Tuesday at 12:30 p.m. and later at 11 p.m. In other electoral matters, Inspector General of Police, Mr. Usman Alkali Baba, says over 200 suspects were arrested and firearms of different specifications recovered during the presidential and National Assembly elections across the country. Well, speaking at a news conference before a meeting of senior police officers at the force headquarters in Abuja, Mr. Alkali Baba also commended police officers across the country for their professionalism during the exercise.
Senior police officers from across the country gathered at the force headquarters for a debrief by the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Usman Alkali Baba, after the presidential and National Assembly elections. The helmsman walks in and signals the start of the meeting. He starts by assessing the February 25 presidential polls. The IGP believes that the Nigerian police, in collaboration with other agencies, took necessary action.
In this regard, out of about 185 major incidents that the police responded to across the country during the election, a total of 203 offenders linked to various electoral process or offenses and sundry crimes have so far been arrested, while not less than 18 firearms of various descriptions were recovered from political talks during the exercise. All these cases are at various stages of investigation at the Nigeria Police Electoral Offensive Desk, and I assure you all that in due course they will all be concluded and processed to the legal department of the Independent National Electoral Commission for possible prosecution.
He commended the conduct of the police officers during the exercise and charges them to even do better at the governorship and House of Assembly elections.
While the presidential and National Assembly election might have presented varying degrees of challenges as captured in the post-election operations feedback that have been received across the various police commands, I am delighted to know with a high level of satisfaction the resilience and the utmost professionalism which you all displayed in the course of your election security affairs conference is to draw on our rich and diverse professional experiences in perfecting our action plan for the forthcoming governorship and State House of Assembly elections on 11th of March 2023 and guaranteeing a stable internal security order ahead of the electoral exercise across the country.
After the IGP's brief, the leadership of the Nigeria Police went into a closed-door session to perfect their plans for the forthcoming elections on Saturday.
We return to the courts once more, this time in Kano, where a federal high court sitting in Kano has granted bail to the House of Representatives Majority Leader Alhassan Ado Doguwa, who is accused of alleged culpable homicide. The presiding judge, Justice Yunusa Muhammad, granted the bail to the tune of 500 million naira. Earlier, a senior magistrate court in Kano had remanded Doguwa until Tuesday, March the 7th, 2023, over charges of public disturbance. However, in an ex parte application for the enforcement of rights of Mr. Doguwa, his counsel, Nuraini Jimo, asked the courts to release the accused on bail. He held that the case was improperly filed in the magistrate court, having no jurisdiction over a capital offence. The case has been adjourned till April the 10th, 2023 for further hearing. In another legal matter, the Lagos High Court sitting in Lagos Island has reserved April the 3rd to rule on a no-case submission filed by the suspended Assistant Superintendent of Police, ASP Drambi Vandi, who is standing trial over the killing of a Lagos State-based lawyer, Omobolanle Rahim, on December 25, 2022. Justice Ibironke Harrison reserved the date after Defense Counsel Mr. Adetokunbo Odutola adopted his final written address on behalf of his client on a no-case submission application filed before the court on February 20, 2023. In the application, Vandi asked the courts to dismiss the suit and discharge him, claiming that he has no case to answer. The prosecution, led by the Attorney General of Lagos State, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Moyosore Onigbanjo, however, countered the arguments and urged the defendants to defend himself, insisting that the prosecution has successfully made a case against him. After listening to the arguments of both parties, Justice Harrison adjourned the matter till April 3rd for ruling. Well, that's it from the nation's capital. It's back to you, Anne.
Thank you, Gloria. Government trade policy and the public procurement process must be made to work in favor of women-owned businesses. And that's according to the Minister of State for Trade and Investment, Ambassador Miriam Katagum. She made the remark at the 3rd International Women's Day event in Lagos, put together by the Bank of Industry, which featured notable women entrepreneurs in the country. Our correspondent Bukola Siamilwemimo reports. We'll definitely bring you that report later, but we head now for business, and Jeffrey Zon is standing by.
Thanks, Anne, and welcome to Business News. U.S. nominee for the World Bank President Ajay Banga has kicked off his global tour with the first stop at the headquarters of the African Development Bank headquarters in Côte d'Ivoire. At a meeting held a few hours ago, Mr. Banga held discussions with the AFDB's group senior management and board led by its president, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, on issues affecting the African continent. Mr. Banga was nominated by President Joe Biden to replace David Malpass as president of the Bretton Woods Institution following the announcement of his resignation. Now, manufacturers' confidence in Nigeria's employment conditions dropped to the lowest in 21 months within the first quarter of this year on the back of growing macroeconomic challenges. According to the latest aggregate manufacturer CEO's confidence index of Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, MAN, for the first 3 months of this year dipped below the 50 points benchmark to 49.2 in the first quarter of this year. Before now, the aggregate index score of the MCCI declined to 55.0 in the fourth quarter of 2022, down to 55.4 recorded in the third quarter of last year. The Debt Management Office has opened its monthly subscription offer on 2 federal government savings bonds at 1,000 naira per unit. According to the DMO, the first offer is a 2-year FGN savings bond due in March 15, 2022 with an interest rate of 465% per annum, while the second offer is a 3-year FGN savings bond due in March 25, 2026 with an interest rate of 10.4% per annum. The savings bond offer opens today and will close on Friday this week with a settlement date on March the 15th. And from there, we head to the NGX, which begin the first full week of March with a positive close, despite the impact of the sell pressure by some investors John Mekwa has details.
Thank you so much. Welcome to the stock market reports. Well, the NGX opens the week on a bright note, adding 42 billion naira after Monday's trade. Investors built on the bullish sentiment from intraday. That's why we see the all-share index in the green, 0.14%. And yes, we are holding forth at that 55,000. Maybe we're heading to 56 next. We'll look out for that. And the market cap looking really good at over 30 trillion naira. Now, the positive sentiments cannot be far from investors' activity on MTN Nigeria, which traded about 681,000 in volume, worth 168 million naira. After that transaction, the share gained 3 naira to close at 248 naira. Dangote Sugar also contributed to that positive move. Now, let's look at the activity counter. A mixed one, mostly in the red. Deals did well at over 4,000, but other than that, we have red for value and red for volume. But it is still a bullish sentiment in the market, and year-to-date is still positive. Now that at least one part of the election is over, hope investors will be more stable in their decision. That's the stock market report. I'm John Mekwa. It's back to you.
And that's it on business news. Jeffrey Uzong is back to Anne for the rest of the news at 10.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky says that operations to defend the embattled eastern city of Bakhmut will go on, and they're backed by senior generals. Western analysts suggest at the weekend that the Ukraine was probably withdrawing some of its troops as Russian forces closing on the city, Moscow, and they've been trying to take Bakhmut for months, with both sides suffering heavy losses in the grinding war of attrition. Meanwhile, head of the Wagner private army involved in the Russian campaign has complained of lack of ammunition amid friction between his fighters and regular Russian forces. Hey, Simon Pusey with more international news in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Bangladeshi authorities are investigating the cause of a massive fire in a Rohingya refugee camp which has left 12,000 people without shelter. Video from the Bangladesh Red Crescent Society shows plumes of thick black smoke rising into the air as the fire rages uncontrolled. No casualties have been reported, but the fire razed 2,000 shelters after spreading quickly through gas cylinders in kitchens. The camp in the southeast is believed to be the world's largest refugee camp. Most of its residents, Rohingya refugees, had fled persecution in neighbouring Myanmar. On Monday, hundreds had returned to the Cox's Bazar area to see what they could salvage from the ruins. The head of Russia's Wagner private army has said it is not getting the ammunition it needs from Moscow as it seeks to gain control of Bakhmut. Boss Yevgeny Prigozhin has complained of a lack of ammunition, saying it could be ordinary bureaucracy or a betrayal. Russian troops from Wagner and regular Russian forces are trying to seize the eastern city of Bakhmut from Ukraine. The Wagner Group has tens of thousands of troops in Ukraine, some recruited directly from Russian prisons, and has become a key part of Moscow's invasion. Relations between Wagner and Moscow seem increasingly tense. Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis has asked for forgiveness from the families of the 57 victims of this week's train crash. Protests have continued for days. Clashes with police were reported on Sunday as thousands joined a demonstration in the capital, Athens. Police estimated 12,000 people to have attended the protest. Migrants crossing the English Channel illegally will be removed from the UK, banned from future re-entry and unable to apply for British citizenship under new legislation. The slew of proposed measures will apply to anyone arriving on UK shores in a small boat. The Refugee Council has criticised the plans, but writing in a newspaper, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said, "Make no mistake, if you are here illegally, you will not be able to stay." The new legislation would place a duty on the Home Secretary to remove anyone arriving on a small boat to Rwanda or a third country as soon as reasonably practicable, and ban them from returning permanently.
If they were trying to stop people crossing in small boats and stop people smugglers, there is a much more effective way to do that, which would be to give safe passage to refugees in Calais. There is a really easy way to stop the small boats, to get rid of the people smugglers. It could be literally done in 2 weeks. So against that background, why are they looking at these draconian measures?
There have been scuffles in the Georgian parliament earlier during proposals for a controversial new law. Lawmakers pushed and shoved each other on the committee floor as proceedings had to be halted. The regular committee meeting was to discuss a new bill known as Foreign Agents Law. The opposition and other critics say it is a Russian model of legislation designed to stop free speech and stifle criticism. Thousands also protested outside of Parliament against the passing of the new bill. A huge traffic accident has badly damaged at least 40 cars in South Africa. Video from the scene in KwaZulu-Natal province shows a line of destroyed vehicles, some on top of each other and some overturned. It's not yet clear what caused the crash. And Mexican night skies have been lit up with the colourful firework displays during Tultepec's annual fireworks festival. Spectators watched from traditional fireworks to elaborate rotating displays during the celebrations. Every year, residents of Tultepec celebrate the patron saint of fireworks, San Juan de Dios, with a week-long festival. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. And we begin with some heartwarming news as Super Eagles and Serie A top goal scorer Victor Osimhen says he is likely to become an icon if he manages to lead his team to their first Italian Serie A championship title in more than 30 years. Osimhen was in Rome earlier today to receive the award for Foreign Athlete of the Year in Italy from the Foreign Press Association. He has 19 league goals this season as Napoli have built a 15-point lead as they chase a first title since the days of football legend Diego Maradona.
Of course, we have been doing quite well this season. It's been really good. The fans were amazing, the coaching staff, everyone, the president. And I just want to say I don't consider myself as an icon yet until I achieve the objective in which the club has set for itself this season. So after that, I think we have a very big chance of being named an icon.
Meanwhile, 10-man Gambia sealed their place in the final of the Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations this evening after beating 7-time champions Nigeria 1-0 in Cairo. The Baby Scorpions held on to secure their slim victory despite defender Haruna Njie receiving his marching orders in the 90th minute for a second yellow card of the semi-final clash. The Gambia will now face neighbors Senegal in the final on Saturday after the latter defeated Tunisia earlier in the day to also confirm their place in the final. On Friday, Nigeria will face Tunisia in the losers' medal march. And on the fire, Chelsea coach Graham Potter says he and his players are excited by the task of overturning a 1-0 deficit against Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League last 16. Chelsea host high-flying Dortmund, who have won all 11 matches they have played in 2023, on Tuesday night off the back of a first win in 7 weeks.
Well, I agree. It's a big game. It's an exciting game. Chance to go through to the last day of the Champions League. So a special night at Stamford Bridge. So we're really looking forward to that. All our thoughts on trying to be positive and trying to go through and win the game. So in terms of what we learned from the previous game, well, we're meeting a a top opponent. You can see their results in the Bundesliga. They're in a fantastic vein of form and pretty much winning games constantly. I think it's 10 in a row.
In tennis, Novak Djokovic has extended his record of weeks as world number 1 to 379 in the latest ATP rankings released today, although Carlos Alcaraz remains in hot pursuit. The 35-year-old, winner of 22 Grand Slam titles edged ahead of Steffi Graf's all-time record last week despite losing in the Dubai semi-finals to Daniil Medvedev. The Russian ended Djokovic's 20-match winning streak and perfect start to 2023 before claiming his third title in as many weeks with defeat of compatriot Andrei Rublev in Dubai. That's Game, Set and Match on Sports News. It's back to Anne with the wrap of the news at 10. I'm Victor Matthias. Thank you for watching.
Thanks a lot, Victor. On a programming note now, watch Political Paradigm on Tuesday at 12:30 p.m. and please watch again later at 11 p.m. And the main news again. The PDP presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, today led other party leaders and supporters in a march to the INEC headquarters in the nation's capital in protest over the outcome of the February 25 presidential election. We also told you that INEC has asked the Presidential Election Petition Court to modify the orders granted the Labour Party and PDP candidates to inspect materials used for the presidential election. And that's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Please have a restful night. I'm Anne Mwawadu. Stay safe.